Let's head back to the jungle and see what the predator has in store for us this time. Let's get into it. Hey, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well out there. And today we're going to make our way even further into the Predator franchise. But before we get into it, like, comment, and subscribe. Join me here. I greatly would appreciate that. Today we're going to talk about Predators. This film came out July 9th of 2010. I saw this opening weekend. It's rated R, had a budget of $40 million. Upon release that summer, it made 52 in America and 127 worldwide. Now, this film, the origins of this film started way back in 1994. Robert Rodriguez was approached by 20th Century Fox about what his take on a sequel to Predator 2 would be. And he wrote something very similar to this. Now, before they went into production on this movie, two other writers came in and rewrote some of the script. But this is basically the gist of what Robert Rodriguez had in mind back in 94, which was deemed too expensive. So 20th Century Fox didn't move ahead with it, and he went off to make Desperado. Now, before this film came out, in 2004, we got our AVP film from Paul W.S. Anderson. And then in 2007, we got AVP Requiem, which was not very well received and didn't do very well at the box office for multiple reasons. We'll talk about that one in a few weeks. So they wanted to reignite the franchise after many years of being dormant. I'm talking just the Predator franchise, not the team-up movies. And they brought in Nimrod Atal to direct this film. He was coming off of Vacancy from 2007. If you've never seen Vacancy, check it out. It's a pretty fun, well-done horror thriller film starring Luke Wilson and Kate Beckinsale. So if you haven't seen that one, check it out. He does a pretty nice job at that film. Again, Robert Rodriguez produced this film. This film was 60% shot around Austin, Texas at Robert Rodriguez's studios down there, and so the jungle scenes were filmed in Hawaii. So this was all shot in America. Now, our cast here of badasses or predators, because it's double entendre for this film. Adrian Brody plays Royce. Now, when he was announced as the main lead of this film, I was skeptical because Adrian Brody is not a very big dude, and we always compare these films to the original where we had some of the biggest badass men on the face of the earth in that first film. And they didn't make it out alive except for Arnold. Then he had to outsmart the Predator. He would have got his ass killed as well. Even in the sequel, Danny Glover's a pretty big dude. So coming into this film, I was a little skeptical. I like Adrian Brody in some things, but I didn't see him in a role like this. Now, he did put 25 pounds of muscle on, and you could tell he bulked up for this film. He did put in the work, so you got to give him credit there. Alice Braga plays Isabella. She's a sniper from the Israeli Defense Force. Walton Goggins plays Stan. He's an inmate from San Quentin, and he was in there for rape and being violent pretty much because he talks about when he gets out, if he gets off the plane, he's going to rape a bunch of bitches. He's a very abhorrent character, but he's also entertaining because Walton Goggins, and Walton Goggins is awesome. Danny Trejo plays a Mexican drug cartel enforcer in this film. Topher Grace plays Edwin, and he definitely does not fit in with this group of predators, and we'll talk about his character in a little bit. And Lawrence Fishburne plays Ronald, and he is basically an extended cameo. He might be in this film in 10 minutes, but he is pretty good playing an insane person. And he's been there a while, so we'll talk about him in a little bit. Now, this film was shot in 53 days, and so it was a pretty quick production. And K&B came in to do the practical effects, the Predator suits, and all that jazz, taking over Stan Winston Studios. And whatnot, where the effects fail is not in the practical stuff, it's the CGI. The CGI used here does not hold up well at all. Watching it in 4K the other night, it sticks out like a sore thumb. It doesn't look very good. So yeah, that's where the effects really fail this movie. The practical effects are all great. The CGI is not so good. But basically, the plot synopsis on this film is, right in the beginning of the film starts off in midair as Adrian Brody's character is falling to this planet, and this parachute ejects and he floats down into this jungle, and then he meets up with Walton Goggins, drops down, and these other characters. He meets all these other characters, and the last thing they remember was not being here. Like, they blacked out and they woke up and they were falling from the sky. And quickly they find out they're on a different planet and they're being hunted by the predators. And they got to figure out how the hell they're going to kill these predators before they kill them and get the hell off of this planet. And that is pretty much Predators. Now, we do get to learn little tidbits about each character as the movie goes along. They stop long enough to have interactions, and we learn little bits about each of our characters. Royce, Adrian Brody's character, is basically a mercenary, ex-military. Now he's a hired gun now. And he really doesn't give a shit about anybody until towards the end, when he kind of gets a little sweet on Isabella, and he helps save her from Edwin, which we'll talk about in a minute, because he is the character who sticks out like a sore thumb here. All these people have training of some sort, or they're violent in their own very way, so they're considered the most dangerous game. And this is what this movie reminds me of, The Most Dangerous Game, that book or the old movie, where you get these strangers trapped in this place and they're being hunted. And it's pretty much what this movie is. Overall, when the action hits, there's some good action scenes here. There's some gore, some cool gore effects. Again, the Predators look pretty cool. They do change up some of the designs for some of the Predators, but we also get the original design of the original Predator. One of the Predators looked exactly like the one from the original film, and that was intentional. They wanted to keep at least one Predator looking like that original Predator design, and they do a pretty good job in matching what was done back in the 80s by Stan Winston Studios. I think the problem with this film is, again, you always compare any sequel to the original. And I really like the sequel as well. You can check out my review down below. Just scroll down, you'll see it. Or go to the Predators playlist I had set up, which this will be on as well. None of these people look like they would be able to take on a Predator. Not hand-to-hand like Arnold tried to do at the end of the first film. Now, they do give them advantages by using their smarts, or they damage the Predator in a way that gives them an advantage over it to at least put up a good fight. So they do kind of a good, smart job of trying to find ways to make it plausible how these folks can stand up against one of these creatures, because these creatures are bigger, stronger, faster, better technology than our main cast here. So they do smart enough things to keep it plausible about how they would stand a chance against these creatures, because if not, the Predators would mow them all down. And that was my other thing, even when I saw this film back in 2010, was this was the baddest people on the planet the Predators found. But overall, you can still enjoy this film. Some of the things, there's a lot of callbacks to the original film if you watch this film closely, with them falling into a river or a lake and all this stuff, just like Arnold did in the first film. There's a lot of callbacks, and I appreciate all that. The stuff with Lawrence Fishburne, he's always good. He's always entertaining. He's good here. He plays this crazy guy who's been stuck on this planet for many seasons, he says. To him, that's how much time has passed. He doesn't know how much time that actually is. All he knows is he's been here for several seasons. He's survived in the spaceship, hiding away from the Predators. And he's not in the movie long, 10 minutes, and then he gets killed by a Predator, and he's gone, and then we're on to whoever's left are getting picked off one by one. Overall, this is a perfectly fine Predator film. It's not nowhere near as good as the original, and it's nowhere near as good as the sequel. Robert Rodriguez had good intentions to try to bring the franchise back. I think if it wasn't released when it might have did better at the box office. There was a lot of competition around this time that year. But overall, it's directed decently. The practical effects are really well done. The CGI effects, they don't look that great, especially now in 4K. They don't hold up very well at all. But overall, this is a very serviceable Predator film. You can have some fun with it. I like the cast here. They do some good work here for what they're given. It's not going to blow your socks off, but it's a solid Predator film. And at the end of the day, I can pull this out once in a while and watch it. Now, if I'm in the mood for a Predator movie, I'm always going to go to the first or second one easily before I pull this one out. I'd have to be in the mood to watch this one, but this is definitely an enjoyable enough film. Like I said, they shot most of this film around the Austin, Texas area at Robert Rodriguez's studios, and then the rest was shot in Hawaii. This film was shot in 53 days, and again, KMB did the effects, and Robert Rodriguez originally wrote the script back in 1994, so this was sitting around a while before Fox decided to come back and say, hey, why don't we do that and try to restart this franchise? So yeah, overall, this is a perfectly fine Predator film. It's perfectly serviceable. You have a good enough time. It doesn't reach the heights of greatness as the first film, and it's certainly not as good as the second film, but it's a pretty good sequel. It's an enjoyable watch. So overall, I would give Predators a 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10 for Predators. What are your thoughts on this film? Leave a comment down below. Let me know. Hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, share this video like you would. Appreciate that. I'll be back next week with a review for The Predator, written and directed by Shane Black, Mr. Majestic, and we'll see what else I can get myself into. But until then, have a great weekend, and bye.